Hello there.
Morning, how are you?
Okay. Greetings, folks. This is Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters on Facebook as we continue our series of Know Your Candidates. We were very involved in the primary election of giving information so that our community will be educated and vote. We're happy today to continue with our vetting of the judicial candidates. I have with me today Bita Yeager for Department 1, who is running for judge. How you doing today, Bita?
Good, good. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, great. And this is the Independent Black Voters. So we're going to ask you, Bita, to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about the Department 1 and a little bit about why we would like to consider you as a potential candidate. You're on.
All right, thank you. And first of all, thank you for having me. And also thank you for the people who are tuning in to get to know their candidates, because it's really important that you get to know who you're voting for. So my name is Bita Yeager. I am a hearing master for our district courts right now. I'm running in Department 1, which is an open seat. So what that means is the judge that's there right now, Judge Corey, is retiring, so there's not an incumbent. And just so you understand what district court does, so that seat does both civil and criminal matters. Also, you know, we get the question, well, do I live in the district that can vote for you? If you live in Clark County, you can vote for me. So I'll actually be at the top of since it's Department 1, it'll go all the way till, like, I think it's Department Z. I'll be at the top of the list of those judges that you'll be voting for. Another question that we ask is, why do some departments have a number and some have a letter? So the ones that have numbers are civil and criminal judges, and the ones that have letters are family court judges. So that gives you sort of the distinction between the two. So I've been a public servant for 25 years and an attorney for 25 years. Right after I graduated from Brigham Young University's J. Reuben Clark Law School, like 3 days after, I hopped in my car, drove down here to Las Vegas to clerk for a judge, Judge Lee Gates. And truthfully, you know, when I first moved down here, I didn't think I was going to stay, but I just ended up loving Las Vegas. You know, I clerked for Judge Adelia D. Guy and also Judge Stephen Heffiker after that. And, you know, I thought, gosh, this is a place where I can really make a difference. So I started my career as an attorney at the public defender's office. So I was there for almost 2 decades as a trial attorney and a team chief. And then I was selected to be a judge in justice court. So I did that for 2 years, and I did an all civil docket. And now as a hearing master, I was selected as the first specialty court hearing master. So I do the mental health piece for our district court, which is very important. On the criminal side, I do our mental health court. I created and started a co-occurring disorders court because we really needed that. And then on the civil side, I do our civil commitment and our assisted outpatient treatment program court. So that way I ensure that people who are in a mental health crisis are given the access to treatment without unduly compromising their freedom rights. Some of the other things that I did, you know, so community-minded, justice-driven is my slogan because I think it really describes me best. When I was an attorney and also as a judge, I've really been looking for solutions to those gaps that we have in our justice system. I started both of our community courts, so our North Las Vegas and our Las Vegas Community Court, which basically does sentencing in a different way. Instead of just doing like a cookie cutter one size fits all, they really assess the offender, it's for nonviolent offenses, but they assess the person and figure out what kinds of things are really causing them to participate in that criminal activity. So is it, homelessness, mental health issues, substance use disorder issues, do they need job skills, all those kinds of things. And then as part of the sentence, you incorporate them really accessing those services and holding them accountable to really, work their program. I also started a record sealing clinic. So when I was a public defender, I had a lot of my former clients reach out to me to say, hey, I don't even know how to do this. This is really complicated. And since it's a civil issue, it's not something that I could do as part of my criminal assignment. So I recruited a colleague of mine. We basically cold called the law school and legal aid of Southern Nevada, and we formed a partnership so that we could offer it as a class to our citizens. And it's been very popular since we started it back in, 2014. I think almost 3,000 community members have attended it. And, in speaking to the district attorney's office after we started the class, their numbers of petitions to seal their criminal records actually went up. So, I really feel like it's important to go above and beyond just your day-to-day work to make those improvements in our community, because it makes our community better. And I have always been passionate about access to justice. And I promise that on the bench, as I am now, that I will continue to make sure that people have access to justice.
Wow, that's a great start.
Sorry, did I talk too much?
No, you talked just right, actually,
Okay.
because I when you can talk about things without being prompted, then you're serious about them. So no, a very good start here. Let me tell you a little bit. How much do you know about the Independent Black Voters on Facebook?
I know a little bit. I mean, I know that you're not really partisan in any way, that you're really more about the issues that affect, people in our community who are Black, and just sort of the many concerns that you might have. So that's what I know. I mean, I know it's not a ton, but that's just kind of my understanding of your organization.
And you're correct. We are nonpartisan. I believe in people, not parties. I don't ask people what their party affiliation, because you're supposed to be nonpartisan as a judge anyway.
Right.
But obviously, when you look at the support of one group or the other, you kind of know. But we don't ask that questions. We ask people prevalent questions as it pertains to the Black community. And here, don't be afraid to say Black, because that's who I am.
Okay.
I'm Black and I'm proud. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not people of color. I'm Black. I'm Black and I'm proud. So our whole issue is to bring light on what's going on today. Obviously, this is a time that is probably far overdue. There is unrest, and it sometimes unrest comes before change. So I have no problem with the unrest that's going on here. Tell me your thoughts, because here I am. This is Bita the person, not Bita the lawyer, and I say that because I know that there are two sides on that coin. Tell me what you think about what's going on today. Give me your opinion.
So and just so you understand, or just so I understand your question, I assume that you're talking about just the whole social justice movement that's going on.
Correct.
I think it's long overdue, just as a person, just as me.
Yes.
So, and I know you said don't talk as Bita the lawyer, but I can only really tell you because of my own personal experience that I've seen. So when I started as an attorney at the public defender's office, which was like eons ago, 1996, possession of marijuana, any amount, was a felony. And as an attorney, I saw disparate policing practices. So let me give you an example. In some of the poorer communities, we'd always get these cases where the police were in the area, they smell marijuana, they go to the person smoking marijuana, they arrest them, and now they're looking at a 1 to 4 felony, or I should say a felony that carries from 1 to 4 years. I love concerts. I love going to live concerts. I distinctly remember right around that same time when I was getting those cases, you know, I went to see, I think it was U2 at the Silver Bowl. There were people all around me smoking marijuana, and there were police officers in the crowd and nothing. So, you know, it's really more about if there's a law and you're going to enforce it, then it should be enforced evenly. It needs to be fair to everyone. And, you know, when you're talking about racial justice, you know, it's not just in the criminal justice system. That's the thing. You know, when I was doing my research to get the stakeholders together for the North Las Vegas Community Court, you know, I really went out into the community. You know, I went to the Safe Village meetings. I talked with Principal Mason, who was over at Kermit Booker. You know, we had Nevada Partners as a partner, and it was really evident to me that it's not just, I mean, the criminal justice system is just like one part. You know, you got to start with the school system. You know, when you're talking about that school to prison pipeline, how children of color are given harsher penalties and more often than, you know, than children that aren't Black or Hispanic or, you know, of color. And, you know, I think we just really need to look at, you know, here's my mental health cap. You know, we really need to look at ways to support these kids that may be having problems, because it may be something that's happening at home. We really need more mental health professionals, I think, in the schools, so that, you know, if you have a kid that's acting out, instead of saying, all right, I'm going to suspend you, you really figure out like what's going on. You know, is there traumatic stuff that's happening at home? Is there some sort of therapy that we need to put you in? You know, do you feel safe at home? Like there's so many, I mean, there's just, I don't know. I feel like it's long overdue. I'm hopeful. You know, it's funny because, you know, as a, you notice things as they happen differently. I think as a public defender or former public defender, right? You know, when you're in it, you're like, okay, so maybe this time, you know, that something's going to happen. And I will say this time it feels different. You know, and I've talked about this with my friends, my husband. You know, there hasn't been a time when like major companies are finally recognizing like, hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have Mrs. Butterworth looking like this, right? Like this is offensive. So I'm hopeful that this change is really going to make some lasting changes, and it really makes people look at their implicit biases. You know, another horrifying statistic: women of color or Black women who are pregnant, they are 4 times more likely to die postpartum than a white woman. You know, and so you got to look. I mean, it's not that Black women are sicker than white women, but, you know, you got to look at, is there an implicit bias going on with the medical care that they're receiving or the attention to what they're saying? You know, women in general, like if you have a heart condition, this is again just an implicit bias. You know, if you're suffering from a heart attack, you as a woman are not going to be taken as seriously as a man. That's an implicit bias issue. I think there's room for change, room for improvement, and I am hopefully excited about what's going to be happening over the next couple of years.
I agree with you, and it's funny because again, I thank you. I'm not having to prompt you, so you know you're talking and speaking from your heart, and that's what our listeners want. We want to know about what you, the person. So we know we will have you, the good judge. You know, I have a bias. I have a bias towards defenders. So I believe that people who have been public defenders, they get to see what's going on. They realize there's more to that person than he stole a purse or she stole a purse. There are underlying factors. You talked about a couple of things, and we're in a discussion mode. I'm a big believer that they're finally looking at systemic racism, because many of the things you talk about, from the courts to everything else, is still economic based. And if you have biases on your hiring, if you have biases on who gets the job, the business opportunities, and you systematically cut out Black businesses, which are more inclined to hire people who are Black, then you are keeping a race down and not giving them the ability to reach their full potential. And when you do that, you cause problems in the school systems, i.e., if a kid is living in a home and his parents are fighting over money, don't have enough money to cover their bills, trying to figure out by hook or crook how they're going to keep a roof over their head, then that kid is learning how his actions should be. That kid has undue stress because they may not even know where their next meal is coming from. And when you don't understand the whole underlying factor is economics or the lack of equal opportunity, then you focus on the wrong things. Just like you say, it's great that they're looking at Miss Butterworth, but I say the same folks, are they looking at who's in their boardroom? Are they looking up and down the line of their management and non-management, say, are we in line with what people look like? Or are we 99% white and less than 1% black? We're part of the problem from systemic racism, which goes back to economics, if we are keeping people away from opportunity. And I'm hoping that we continue to keep the eyes on the prize, which is social justice, equal justice under the law, but equal opportunity for economic opportunity so that Black folks can create generational wealth like everyone else. And if that happens, you will have less people, hopefully from the criminal side, period, that in your room. Our goal should be to close down our jails. We want Mayberry RFD. We don't want to have major everybody locking up, putting them in jail. You hit on the key issue of marijuana. You and I know there was never a war on crime. There was a war on Black people. Just as you said, put paper on this Black person. So if they had marijuana, I'm going to take them and put the hammer down on the full extent of the law. But if it's a white person, it's kids having fun. Oh, I'll just let them go with a warning. And sometimes in some situations, I'll just look the other way and do it. So I'm glad that they have stopped the war, and they haven't stopped, they've modified the war on Black people, but hopefully they will continue to look at what is real and true systemic racism.
Right. Well, and you brought up a point about like the war on drugs, I think, and a couple of other things. I mean, recent research tells us, like, when you're talking about a kid who's living in a stressful home because their parents are fighting over money. I mean, there is research that shows that actually changes the brain. That kind of trauma, poverty is one of the indicators on what's called ACE factor. It's an adverse childhood experience. And those kinds of things actually can change that child's brain so that they could be more susceptible to addictions and some other things. So really, we really need to look at what we're doing as a society, treating addiction and mental health in our criminal system as a public health crisis, right? Because, if we address the public health crisis, then we won't see the criminal issue. And I think it's really important to really look at a person as a whole. I learned very quickly that when I represented someone, the criminal case was just the tip of the iceberg of everything else that they were undergoing, where they were getting evicted or, homeless, or, I mean, there was just they'd been abused. I mean, there was just so many other things that complicated their ability to really be law abiding. And so I think if we really look at people as a whole, and, don't get me wrong, there are a certain segment of people that are violent and dangerous and need to be segregated from society.
Absolutely.
I get that. But there's also a large number of people given the supports that they need, can reintegrate back into our society. And that really makes our community safer.
Or even not have to reintegrate, because if you deal with these issues, they never leave society.
Right, exactly. So let me give you an example. So I run our mental health court. I have a gentleman who came to us. He had 6 prior felonies, and I am grateful that the sentencing judge sent him to mental health court because, you know, he had mental health issues and coexisting substance use disorder issues. And if he had gone to prison, you know, he would have done his time. And when he came out, he would still have those substance use disorder issues and those mental health issues without learning anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we have them for over 2 years where they learn about, you know, their diagnosis, they learn about the medication they need to take. I mean, it's a lifelong thing, right? It's like diabetes or heart disease, you know, something that you just have to manage all the time. And, you know, you know, he relapsed a couple of times, but got back on it. And the amazing thing is that once he really started engaging, he reconnected with his family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and his daughter, who hadn't spoken to him in years, was finally allowing him to see his grandkids. By the time he graduated, he was picking his grandkids up from the school, you know, really being an active part of their life. And that was what motivated him to continue to be stable and law abiding. And I think, you know, when you go from, man, you know, what happened that you relapsed? Let's talk about it. How can you do differently next time? To, hey, how are your grandkids doing? What'd you do with them this week? It's incredibly rewarding for me.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because we become a society of sound bites. We don't really peel back the onion because a lot of people hear that word and it's all according to what side of the spectrum. Defund the police. Oh, defund the police. And some people means that we're going to get rid of the police and we're going to just let this place is going to be the wild, wild west. But really and truly, defunding the police is a lot of the things you're talking about right now. It is bringing in social services in some degree and not just putting everything into enforcement, but trying to figure out how to prevent by bringing the right people who have the right skill sets to address some of the problems out there. Sometimes it's not always just sending the police. Sometimes it's sending the right people to do the right job. But we get caught up on the word defund and not realize, no, it's rearrange the priorities of our community to become a help community versus lock them up, throw them away to keep community. And that's very important.
Right. You know, I actually heard someone saying, you know, instead of saying defund the police, defund communities
Mm-hmm.
is a really great way of putting it. And, you know, I will tell you that in talking to and working with police officers through crisis intervention training, or, you know, when I was doing my community courts, like the Las Vegas community courts and the North Las Vegas community courts, you know, they want help with mental health and some of these social issues. You know, I remember one of the officers, you know, when we were talking about starting the Las Vegas community court, he said, you know, right now, all I can do is arrest. So when all I've got is a hammer, everything has to be a nail. Now that I got a whole tool belt, you know, they can get referred to these services, I'm so much more effective. And I think really if we, you know, part of the issue too is we really need to work together as a community to make those connections. So that way it gives officers options, right? Because if your only option is to haul someone off to jail, I mean, you know, you can't really say like it's all on them. We as a community also need to bring options to the table.
Absolutely.
So that and, you know, navigate this complicated system better.
Yes, you are 100% right. Because here's the thing, and the realization is this: we in the Black community realize that the bulk of police officers are very good people who are there to protect and serve. But there's a small percentage who are not, and unfortunately, you know, it's like anything else. If you have a bad apple in the cart and you don't take that bad apple out, it eventually everybody looks like that. So what you say is 100% right. We have to recreate trust. We have to create a belief that from that aspect, there's respect for the community, and from the community's aspect, there's respect for the police. And a lot of them is about addressing biases, addressing unequal justice, and getting people to realize there's other alternatives. Because I say this all the time, and again, we're just talking because part of what our community wants to do is know you as a person. They say by 2053, Black America, not people of color, not women, not veterans, will have no wealth in America. And this was before the coronavirus. It's probably expedite that significantly now. And those who don't have will take. Those who are in a situation of hopelessness will have very little concern about other people. We have to fix issues. If America is truly wants to be as strong and as good as it can, you have to focus on the weakest links. You have to help them become stronger so we as America is stronger. And we have to have people like yourselves who are coming in as judges, because you have a big voice outside of your courtroom too. We have to have people who understand the dynamics of a multicultural place called America, who has empathy, understanding, and is willing to stand up for what's right. I didn't know you until this conversation, Bita. You reached out. I sent out an email, simply put, you responded. Your opponent has yet to respond to me, and that's okay because I don't chase people around. If they are interested, they'll talk to me. If they're not, they're not. We will be endorsing candidates and we will be helping them win. A lot of our endorsements come from our interviews. A lot of our endorsements come from what you say and do. I encourage you, if you've not joined the Independent Black Voters group on Facebook, to join, and encourage your friends to join. And I tell people I do a rant. I do about a minute rant, a couple days a week, where I just talk about what's on my mind.
Right.
I encourage you as a candidate to come in and do rants occasionally and tell us who you are. Tell us what you think. Let us know. It's not just, oh, this is what I've done. These are my credentials. We want to know where you're thinking, like we're talking about now. I tell people we're not the Review Journal. We do not want to just have you talk about your skill set behind the bench. We want to know what your thoughts are and what your heart is in your mind. We say this, our objective is for equal justice. Our objective is for equal opportunity for wealth in America. We want the American dream like everyone else. But if we don't fix our political side, then we will never see it. So again, this is the Independent Black Voters. Bita, you did a good job because I didn't have to prompt you, and you told me from your heart.
Attorneys are talkers.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is give me your information, and then give me your 1 minute spiel on why we should vote for you, and then I'm going to close this off, and hopefully we'll talk after the recording's over. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. All right. So you can reach me at, well, my website is www.yeager4 with the letter 4 judge.com. You can also email me at yeagerforjudge@gmail. And if you go on my website, you'll actually get all the information about like phone numbers and all that kind of stuff. So, I get the question a lot, like, why should I vote for you? Why do you earn my vote? And I would say to you, I'm asking for your vote because I am the best person for the job. I'm a community-minded problem solver. And you can tell that not just by what I say, but, look at my track record. And do your research. I mean, get on my website, see what I've done, see the kinds of committees I'm on and what I've been doing in the community, not just for this campaign, but just because that's who I am and that's what I've been doing throughout my whole legal career. And I would say there, a couple of other points. I'm the only candidate with judicial experience in the race. I'm the only candidate with both civil and criminal experience in the race. And also, I think it's important to understand the kinds of cases that I've had, because I end up with a lot of just regular folks that have been in my courtroom. And I want to make sure that when people come to my courtroom, that they understand what's happening, that they understand what the law is that I have to depend on to make my decision. And then when I make my decision, after I've heard their part, I explain to them why I've made that decision. And I always ask them at the end, do you have any questions? Because I think it's really important to make sure that when someone comes to court, that they feel like they had an opportunity to be heard, that they had their day in court. And I can absolutely guarantee you that's what I've done, and that's what I will continue to do, because access to justice is really important to me. So that is why I'm asking for your vote.
Well said. And I thank you, Bita. This is the Independent Black Voters, folks. I'm going to ask you to do something. If you've watched this video in its entirety, I thank you. You are now a little bit more educated than you were before you hit the run button. Now I ask you to forward this to at least 10 of your friends and encourage them to watch these videos. We cannot complain about our judicial system if we do not vote, but not just vote if we don't take the time to be educated voters. There are many people that do interviews for these candidates. Our candidates, the Independent Black Voters, our interviews are specifically to talk about the issues in the Black community as it pertains to social justice and wealth equality. That is a laser on us on what we're talking about here. If you believe and you want change, but you do nothing, then you really don't want change. I would love to see change. I would like to see a world where equality is the norm, where equality of opportunity, equality of justice are all practiced the same. But it will not happen if you are waiting for someone else to do the heavy lifting. I was not called here, or I was not nominated, and I did not create the Independent Black Voters simply because. It was done because I believe, if not me, then who? If you don't believe that you can be a part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So again, I thank you, Ms. Yeager, Attorney
Thank you.
Yeager.
I really appreciate it.
We'll talk some more. And I
Okay.
challenge the Independent Black Voters to share this with as many groups and as many people as you can, because we can make a difference and we can change the outcome of business as usual. The Independent Black Voters signing off.